Hey everybody, welcome to USA Wrestling's Moments Off the Mat. My name is Mike Clayton. I'm your National Coaches Education Manager at USA Wrestling. And today we're joined with USA Wrestling Greco-Roman National Team Staff Coach, Gary Mayabb. Gary, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Mike. It's great to actually be back with you, if only in video, right?
That's right. It's good to have you back in the house. We have a bit of a unique relationship for those of us that don't know us well. Maybe you could explain that better.
Well, myself and Dorothy, my wife, we've got our youngest still in the home, and she just graduated and is heading to KU next year. But yeah, so I've been for the last 3 years. I've been living in your basement, so it's great. There's an awful lot of for me, it's great because I get an awful lot of coaches education around 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes. So it's pretty awesome. There's nothing like a warm fire sitting up top on the hill at the fire pit up there and just soaking it in. So it's really good to be back, if nothing else, on video back in Colorado.
So you had been working on a document, and you just, as sometimes we do, we like to throw ideas back and forth off each other, and we're trying to create resources that are there to help our athletes reach their goals. And you walk in and you said, hey, this is a weight management chart that I'm working on. Tell me what you think. And I went nuts over it. From the educational side, I'm like, we don't do enough education around what proper weight management looks like. And for you to address it and tackle it and to put it in a way that really made sense, I'm still just tickled pink and excited about this. Could you maybe, I know you've got the document with you, you're going to share screen with us. Could you kind of dig into that and give us a little bit of the background about, why that came about and your philosophy on this?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, primarily, just while we're still on this, I mean, as you know, it's all about performance. And anything we want to advantage stack. So if we take and we stack items up and they're to our advantage, we're also sometimes, unfortunately, stacking negative. And when we stack these negative things, we're taking on issues that that is going to impede our performance down the road. And one of those that I think we do really, we do too good of a job of treating it in the wrong way. And I think sometimes that it really hurts our performance. And at the end of the day, that's what this whole thing is about, right? It's your whole work and my work with USA Wrestling is all about the education of coaches and the performance of the athletes based on that. And so tonight we want to hit on both of those scenarios. We want to talk to some coaches, and again, just talk. We'll take any feedback because you and we're all about learning all the time anyway. And I do not pretend to have the answers. I'm just throwing out some ideas that we can all share. And just like what you and I do all the time, we're going to share out the idea, and then we'll get the feedback in, and hopefully we'll get closer to kind of where we want to get to.
So you're kind of saying that, if I'm hearing it right, nobody cuts weight to have bad performance.
Right.
There's a good reason behind the desire to do this.
First of all, weight loss is not a bad thing, right?
Right.
I mean, before we got on this call, I told you I've gained a few pounds, and I'm going to take them back off again. But I know how to do that, and I know how to do it right. And down the road, I mean, at 60, weight is important, and it's for the rest of our lives. It's the health and welfare of that. And when people have really, really negative experiences with weight loss, it leads to athletes leaving our sport before they ever get a chance to really reap the rewards and benefits of their training, because we know all of the great lessons that this sport can teach us. And when we leave and exit early, those are what we're losing. We're losing people that didn't gain those lessons from our sport. I think that it's wrestler for life. I don't think that's a sticker. I know that what Frazier and his staff does has so much more to do that. And I think this is part of that.
And this is how we need to promote our sport, right? Because our sport does provide the right tools for successful life. I talked with Kyle Martin, and I know you're a big Kyle fan, and
Oh, huge
he
cop.
finished his gold, saved a kid's life with the bronze emergency
Yep.
action plan. I mean, everything you could throw at him. He's about done with his PhD.
Wow.
He finished his comps today, and
Awesome.
so he'll get his results back in a week. And what was great was he was talking about it too. He said in these situations, he's like, I feel like if it wasn't for wrestling, there's no way I could have done what it took to get my PhD. He credits wrestling with where his life
Oh,
is professionally, financially. It's a big impact for us. How does wrestling consume us this much? And is that a bad thing? Like, I don't want to think so, but
no. Well, I think it's based a lot on sacrifice and grit. I mean, it takes tremendous sacrifice. And when you lay so many things on the line, we have senior level athletes right now that are, I mean, at times I think they're writing checks for candy bars, and they're barely making it, but yet they are fully dedicated. They are absolutely immersed in their own pursuit of their dreams. And I don't care what it is. If you could get to that point where you could fully immerse yourself into the learning, the skill sets it takes, and the devotion, sacrifice, all of those words that people throw out sometimes too lightly, these men and women of our national team, they live that. And because of that, I think that they're gaining. I was talking to an athlete just this week, and he was speaking about that he felt a little like he was not swimming real well in deep water. And I told him, I said, how exciting is that? Because right now he does not have to be ready for a competition. So what he's done is he's added to his plate in his preparation in this quote downtime. How exciting is that? He's added to his plate. He's taking on new resources and learning. And out of that, he feels like he's barely swimming. But yet, what he's really doing, as you and I know, he's banking. He's putting investment in the bank, and I hope for all of it that he gets return on it.
that's pretty cool. Because in times like this, um, Clay Frost, who does the mental training with us a lot,
Right?
we had a discussion today, and he said a lot of times that's the piece that's holding us back, and it's neat to hear, right? Like, instead of being in a scarcity mindset, we're in a
Right.
thrive mindset, right? Because it'd be easy to feel scarcity right now today.
We talk all the time about control the controllables. What are you in control of? And whatever you're in control of, double it down right now. And some of these guys are doing a great job of that. And so happy for, I talked to one of the women's coaches today, and she was telling me all the exciting things. I mean, just blows me away sometimes, keeps me up at night on how hard they work. So it's good. And I just think that, when you look at the definition of high performance, and that's what we're really talking about tonight, is performing at your very best when you want to be your very best. And that's when the pressure's on these big matches. And it's the work that you've done for 5 to 15 years to get to that point. And to have something go wrong in the last 36 hours even on something you've worked that long and that hard for, these are the things that we've got to put an end to as best we can. And again, I praise all the coaches out there that do the work that they do across the country. So none of this, I hope, is taken negatively by anybody, because it's certainly not meant to be. It's simply, what are ideas and advancing us forward? And when you take that, what you talked about, that high performance mindset, that's really about, like you said, in these moments of scarcity, these high performers, they turn and look at it and go, oh, there's all these opportunities. And that's the reason why they get up day after day early. They rise before the sun, and they have dinner after dark, but they're working. And so that's kind of where we're at. Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, if you don't mind, let's share this document,
Okay.
and we'll try to figure out and see what this plan that you've kind of put together, because this is great. It's a visual representation of kind of what the process looks like.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna share a screen here, and we'll set this up a little bit real quick. And as always, it's about plan the work the plan, adjust and advance. And this is our overall mission for everything we do with the Greco program, and especially at age group. And so working the plan, that's that middle piece. But what we're going to talk about is the first part of that, plan the work. So we're going to look at some items tonight that you did a great job when you grabbed that document. I'm going to show both documents. I'm going to show mine and then show what you turned it into, because it's pretty awesome. I mean, this is what we all should be doing, is creating these collaborations. So, and then, we're going to plan the work, and we're going to show a lot of that plan tonight. And then we're going to work the plan. And that's what we do with our athletes in helping them in a really consistent, well-planned descent. And then look for all the options that this descent plan can give us. That's the other thing. This is a very, very flexible document. And so we're going to adjust in advance. And then, as always, champions do extra. And if the extra is going the extra to really fine tune really what they want, and to reflect on every performance that they have, every competition that they go through, how was my weight? Was my weight an issue in this go? And a lot of times we look at technique and tactics, but we've got to really figure out, did we put enough fuel in, and how much fuel did we take out? And did we overburn our fuel before we got started? So
what happens when we go into this environment without the proper fuel?
Oh, well, I'm going to show a crash here.
Okay.
I mean, because that's really what happens to us, right? I mean, there's a moment there where your mind is strong enough. If you're a high performer, your mind is strong enough to keep pushing and shoving. And all the bells and whistles are going off inside your head saying, shut it down, shut it down. But at some point, your body really just says, I am shutting it down. And the problem is that if that's the case, then what comes about that sometimes? Wrestlers can push ourselves way beyond normal limits, and we know that. If the anaerobic threshold is somewhere, and I'm going to make a mistake, and physiology people will get a hold of me on this, but if it's around the 230, 235 mark in wrestling, I've heard that number several times, and that's that transference over. Well, the match is 6 minutes long. So unless you've really done a good job, I mean, we've all been in matches. If you're a wrestler, we've all been in matches where we look over at the clock and think, oh my God, I got 1:20 left to hang on to this lead. And then you turn around and you look again, like 25 seconds later, and you have 1:19 left. So, it's amazing how that can engulf us, and you can feel it shutting down. And what's crazy is that we recognize that while we're doing this sometimes. When we're really pushing the envelope on taking a little too much weight off, you can feel it every time you bust the weight off. And so that's just, again, I want to stay with the education side because that's what you meant it for. So just to realize that, I think.
And really quick too, when we're talking about the age range, you're talking about this from what age level?
Right here. So
okay, here we go.
What I've got right now, that's exactly where I was going.
Thanks.
Like, we've got high school folk style over here in this big area of circles in green. But inside that, for us, the world that you and I work in, we've got U15 coming in on the bottom of that funnel into the cadets. And the cadet is the biggest circle that I work out of, because that's what I try to focus on, because that's our future. And our future feeds into. So what I want you to think about is tonight, everything that we're going to talk about is half of this screen. It's the left half of the screen. It's high school folk style, U15, cadet, junior, half of it. When you get to that right side where juniors are good enough and they're elite juniors and they're making world teams and they're moving into that realm of senior world team possibility, they're fighting for a contender spot in that area, and especially U23s. A lot of our juniors now that are making world teams are freshmen in college. And so it's so important that what we're really talking about tonight, again, by the time you get to the right side of the screen, then you will have individual coaching, you'll have customizable plans. It's all those things. Tonight, I'm going to introduce some thoughts of customizable plans that we used with our cadets and our juniors. and a little bit with their U15 world team a year ago. So, and those guys had great success. So we'll move.
Sweet.
So again, it always starts with the athlete. What are their goals? What's the mission they're on? And what is their vision for the future? Where is wrestling in that? And they'll have their core values and principles, the keywords and phrases that will drive them, get them out of bed at 5:30 in the morning, put them to bed late, hopefully not too late. Late might be 9 because we need that rest and recovery. But the bottom line is it's all based on what they term to be their success pyramid. So they're going to write down their goals. But when they write down their goals, we've got a lot of management issues. We've got risk management. We got lead management. We got weight management, which we're going to talk about tonight. We got time management during the matches. We got travel management, training management, crisis management, and fatigue. Crisis and fatigue is going to happen to us if we train. If we do not manage it some way, it will, what it will do. It will take us down. So we're going to talk about one of those middle areas that I talked about, and that's weight management tonight. So it's where the focus is. Now we know what age group we're talking about. So again, I'm going to make some statements tonight, but these do not apply to elite juniors and above. Okay. It is the bottom part of the junior. I don't mean that negatively. I mean that positively. And then the cadets and so really everything that we're doing that has quote development on it. Okay.
So we're laying the foundation so that down the road, we have a better chance for success.
Absolutely. 100%.
Great.
And so, but again, these things are manageable, right? Sure. And I said crisis and fatigue, and those are manageable. And if we get to the point where we don't think they're manageable, then we're going to really have some errors. We're going to have some problems. Well, first of all, I want to start with the document that you grabbed a hold of, and just, my personal side of coaching is build a great foundational box and then expand and blow the box up. So when I handed that document over to you, that's exactly what you did. So as excited as you were about my document, I was equally, or if not more excited about the document you handed back to me. And again, I think for all coaches across, our great country, I hope that we all collaborate like this, because this is a great example of a model of what can happen when we do that. All of us are smarter than one of us.
And like you said, those late night talks in the basement, what I've gained from that, we're gaining from each other by feeding off each other, and helps keep us motivated too. And that's tough in this time.
Oh, absolutely. So we have to start, first of all, with the red box up there. So if you would, go ahead and read that red box, because that was your phrasing right there.
You bet. So we're trying to explain the why behind this chart, and proper weight management and hydration practices help promote athlete safety as well as athlete performance. The benefits of training are reduced when the body is not properly fueled and hydrated.
So everything we just talked about for about 5 minutes there, tried to tell a couple of stories, you grabbed it, and in 2 really short, I don't even know if they're paragraphs, like 2 bullets. But again, the number one thing that we have to do every single day is the safety of the combatants. That's it.
That's it.
And after that, everything else goes beyond that. But especially at the developmental level, that's in our hands and our heart, and we should be there all the time. So athlete safety. Number 2, as coaches, we put a lot of time and effort in. The athletes put a lot of time and effort in. Mom and dad and the whole support staff puts a lot of effort in to that athlete. And to have something go wrong in the last week, the last 10 days to a week, whatever it might be, 36 hours, 13 hours, 1 hour, we can take and undo almost all of the performance benefits that we did in our advantage stacking. So that's what you start out with in that second one, the benefits of training. You've done the work. Get the reward that you've earned. Do not sacrifice or hurt your own efforts. So, again, now it's divided into 3 parts here, and we've got the drawdown phase, competition and training phase, and then recovery. And so I want to start over here on the left and work. And again, this was written, the part that you wrote, the document that I'm going to real quick just show the document. So this is the back side of your document you developed. And this is what I handed you, I think. So, and this was, we started to develop this because of 2-day weigh-ins, and then the need. We've had 3 situations in this quad, in the Tokyo quad. We've had 3 situations where we had senior level athletes that needed to make weight twice for 2 really big competitions within, a 1 weekend apart. So literally 6 to 7 days, sometimes 5 in one case. And so, and one of the 2 of those had international travel to it, mixed in between it. So really, really tough scenarios. One was where we went to the Pan Ams and then returned back to the stage of world team qualification. The following 2 years, we went to Pan Ams and then came back to world team qualification. So really high stakes on both of these. And then the final one we just completed in Canada, where we went up in March, and first weekend we turned around, we had a very quick turnaround there where we wrestled in the Pan Am Championships. That was very important because it was the second part of the seeding process for the qualifier tournament, which was the following weekend. And so our athletes performed very, very well. They did a tremendous job. But, so this document was developed out of that need to know how can we kind of reload the process, quicker than we should, because normally we have a competition internationally, then we get some downtime, and then we start to rebuild for the next one. And many times that's literally might be 3 months apart. And this was literally 5 or 6 days. So that's the reason why. So we did it. And then you grabbed that document and then turned it into this neat thing. And what this was more of an overview. So the drawdown phase is early season slow drawdown. So I want to talk about this real quick about one area. Had a great conversation today with Coach Jackson, Kevin Jackson, our national development coach for freestyle. And he talked a lot. We talked quite a bit about weight management and what that means to our athletes and how we feel about it. And we know that with USA Wrestling, you could speak on this, but educationally wise, we do not condone plastics being used at those developmental ages.
Right.
And so ran into that a couple of times in the past here recently, and it's just it can't be done. I mean, when we do that, we run the risk. I mean, we never want the worst to happen, and the worst is not losing. The worst is having health of our athlete go south. I don't whether it's, I don't care if it's minor, what we would call minor, or if it's something that's catastrophic. We have to fight that. So do you want to say anything more on that, Coach?
It was interesting. Clay Frost had mentioned this in our talk today. The concept of what we accept in our coaching, in our parenting, what we accept becomes the norm for future generations. Right. So if we accept bad practices in this area, that's what the norm is down the road. So this is important for us to work with our coaches, to work with our athletic trainers, our nutritionists, to make sure we're doing this right, because if we do it right, the next generation will be teaching it and doing it the right way as well.
Right. Well, I got to say too, I really do believe that so many of our coaches that I know that I did it wrong. I know that I was taught wrong, but I really do believe there's the majority of all the coaches, Coach Jackson and I both talked about this, really high performance coaches across our country are doing, and it's not even about safe practices, which they are, but safer practices, but it's about performance practices. And now that we have weigh-ins, more like we do domestically now, I mean, it's an hour before, an hour and a half, 2 hours at best. And when you start cutting down time, and you know that you've got to make the weight, get a little something in you, and get a warm-up, wow, that's an awful lot to have happen 2 hours before the first session, and the first round goes very quickly. Those first 3 rounds, I mean, we have athletes that have, 20-minute turnarounds is almost a blessing. So it happens very fast. And if your recoverability after the fact is very, very limited. So that's for a whole nother night probably on what you can get in. But the one thing I do want to say, because I want to say it several times, is what we've been feeding off of in 2019, the world teams that I worked with at Age Group, we worked off the premise of 1 cup every 20 minutes, and it's in your document. You have it there. But I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of great feedback from our athletes that said yes. And we practiced that in our world team camps. We took days where we brought the athletes in at 7, we weighed them, and then we sent them to the cafeteria. They ate a light meal, and then they came back, and then right before 10 o'clock, they wrestled their first match. So they came back in the room a little after 9, walked around, got their warm-up going, shut down for about 30 minutes, brought heart rate back up, and then they wrestled their match. So we mimicked that. We modeled that probably 3 times directly with our teams. So I think that's really important that they get really comfortable with that, because you can learn a lesson without learning it on competition day. So you put more water. Again, it's not how much water you can drink, and it's not how much water you need. It's how much water your stomach will absorb and put into the system. And if you drink more than 1 cup per 20 minutes, 8 ounces, then you get that little sloshy feeling. And we talked about just making it just room temperature water. You're going to put this water into a body that if you had to bust off any last weight, you got a little core temperature going. And now you're going to, these guys that take ice water because it tastes good, I mean, stomach does this. So, I mean, there's a lot to this. So I'm only going to touch on some of it tonight, but we want to stay with the chart. So early drawdown. And one of the things that Coach Jackson talked about was something that we did and started doing about the second year that we had weight certification. And once we got to weight certification, we started realizing that if you certify early, or if you certify when you're not in shape, you get a false number. You really do. But so always, the first thing you want to do is base train. So that drawdown phase, get some good base training. Get yourself down. Take that outer layer of fat off of your body, okay? And then get a fat count by a professional. And when you get that, so like in our world team camps of this summer, we were going to take fat counts because we had those camps set up 4 weeks out. So we were going to get some great training, but we were also going to get our fat count. And we expected those athletes to come into camp in shape, ready to go.
And that's a great way to tell, right?
Right. We can tell a little bit about what you've been doing. And there's a lot of different metrics that let us do that. That's one of them. So now between the drawdown phase and the competition training, you've actually put a grade chart there, starting with, where your urine doesn't want to look like, and ending up where your urine does want to look like. Very clear there, white at the top. Yep. So actual weight certification. So you talked about it. Here's the drawdown phase. I just want to make note that the drawdown phase has a training to it. Drawdown phase is not weight, it's training. So your drawdown phase should be that slow drawdown based on that. I'm going to show a result of that too coming up. And you've got 3 things below that. So you want to touch on those 3 areas?
Sure. One, we talk about some basic modifications in preparation for this drawdown phase. Maybe we get rid of the extra sweets, right? I know for me personally, 3 pounds went away for me when I stopped drinking soda in high school. So I just knew at the beginning of the season, whatever my weight was, take 3 off when I stopped drinking soda.
Great
so
one.
Some basic modifications of the diet. Certainly want to increase our hydration because we're increasing our activity level, and that's the only way we're going to cool ourselves down. So from a safety feature, that helps us. And then it also helps us get better energy longer for those longer training periods. We probably train a little longer in the drawdown phase than we do when we're peaking at the end of the season, and we need more water to be able to get through a good hard 2-hour, 2.5-hour practice. And then increase activity levels. If we can get that extra workout in every day, burn a few extra calories, that gives us the ability to get more calories in, because like you said, we're not necessarily trying to keep calories out in the drawdown. But if we can burn more calories, we can eat more calories and increase our metabolism and really start to fuel the beast and get that machine ready when we have to start making the competition and training phase changes.
100%. What I want to do right now is I want to jump off of this one, go to the back page, because I think in order to get into the second part of that second phasing, I think that we need to look at key vocabulary.
Cool.
And the area I want to talk about is down there at the very bottom, yo-yoing. And so this next part, when we look at part 2, so over on the right there, you see the actual urine color chart that Mike put on this. And I thought that was a great visual. And so often, I mean, luckily, being lucky enough to work Big Tens and work Big Ten duels almost every Sunday, it seemed like, for a few years there, about every locker room I went into, they had this at the urinals. So it was the part about this that's so good is that it is a metric that we don't have to do anything for. Mm. We simply look down, find the color, and then we look at the chart. And after you look at the chart enough times, you're going to look down at the color and go, okay. And then then your actions, your next action, how much water are you going to put in? What are you going to do? Now, we know that there are certain things that can change the color. And we know that if we put vitamins in, we take a lot of vitamins, especially the ones that aren't water soluble, right? Mm. Then we know that it can discolor a urine. There are certain foods that can discolor our urine. But overall, I mean, if you get a wrong color, drink more water, because even if it's based on the vitamins, you want the vitamins to flush.
That's right.
Because if it's coming out of your urine, you're not getting any use out of it anyway. So flush it out of there, right? And so those kind of things, I think that the visual part of that is so important, and it's such a great metric, and it's nature. Nature's taking care of us. So, and then we've already talked about fuel and about rehydrating. I'm going to say that another time because I think it's so important. 1 cup, 8 ounces every 20 minutes. And our own staff members here at the OTC, they talk sometimes about what you do every 15, you put in 6 ounces every 15 minutes. I'm great with that one, right? And that's okay too. Now, if you want a few more ounces, that might be the way to go, because now you're getting, now you're getting 12 every 30 minutes. So you're going to gain a couple of ounces in doing that. And again, so I think that range is somewhere between the 8 and 9 range that you're going to get. Okay. But more than that, it's not going in anyway. So,
and this is a lot about who I am as a person, right? Like maybe I can drink a little bit more and I feel good. I compete well, no problem. But maybe I need to drink a little less. And once we tune in and we get this practice down, and that's where you doing this in practice has got to be so great for the athletes. Sure. They're fixing it in a practice environment with very low pressure. They're not doing it at a big tournament like junior nationals or something like that.
So the top one, when we talk about pull, the act of reducing weight for a water table, and we have to find out what we can pull out, and I always talk about the water table, and the water table, that's the other thing you got to find out personally, because everyone will have a little bit different water table there. But what we consider a water table is like, my water table at one point was 4.5 pounds, 90 minutes. So I could take 4.5 pounds off the day of competition in 90 minutes. Now, did I want to take all that? No, I didn't want to have to be 4.5, but I knew if I had to, 4.5 could happen. And the thing I'm always amazed by is when I work, because in tens, we work all the weigh-ins. And so you watch athletes at Big Ten championships, and they go in, they get their workout in, and then they walk up and get on the scale, and they're not 0.2 under, they're 1/10 under. They are on or under. It's amazing, and it's like clockwork. They know exactly what their water table is. They're educated athletes, they're hard fighters, and they know where their body's at optimal performance piece. So that's one thing. And then drift and float, because at night we drift. And we're going to drift partly because when we get up in the morning, you should have that first morning urination. And if you don't, then there's probably, that's a great signal of a problem. That's probably even worse than that bad color down there at 7 and 8.
Mm.
But so that should happen. And when it does, then that's part of your float, because a float is one of the only free parts of weight reduction there is, I think. And then our breathing at night, again, as we exhale, we put out X amount of fluid. Okay. So during the night, and then not only that, the amount that we do sweat during that time, keeping our body regulated, it will, we get cold, then we get hot, and we get cold. And so all of that leads to parts of the float. And so those are two big areas. And then finally, I want to talk about plateau. And a plateau is one of the things that you've got to really, as part of weight management, is understanding that plateau. Because what happens is sometimes weight comes off easy, as we know, and everything's good. And you're thinking, I got this. So why not put a couple of donuts in or something crazy? No. Because you don't know when the plateau is going to hit. That's when the body says, hey, wait a second, you've been pulling some pounds from me. So now I'm gonna store some stuff. And the body's unbelievably sophisticated in how it does that. So whether it's, starting with insulin, or, there's all these chemical parts to it that lends itself to whether we, what our ATP is and all of that. So when we talk levels, we're talking all of those levels. And those levels will be disrupted or held many times, and it will show up to us as a plateau if we're aware of it. If we get a couple of days and go, wait a second, my weight's not dropping and I'm doing the same amount of activity. I'm putting in the same calories. And again, I'm not getting into calorie counting, because very few wrestlers do I know that does that actually. Probably some of the absolute elites, but remember what we're talking about. Bottom part of juniors, cadets, and U15s. And so if we can just get them to put the right thing in, I'm not too worried about the amount most of the time. So if these plateaus hit, we have to see those plateaus early. Another thing that will create a plateau right before, and we've all been subject to this, putting sodium in where we've decreased the amount of water we're putting in late in the pull down and the drawdown, and a day before weigh-ins, maybe 16, 20 hours there, we're pulling that water away. And as we do, maybe 2 days earlier, we had actually maybe we had soup because we thought, well, this would be great. This would be easy on my stomach. Well, maybe that soup had a lot of sodium in it, and that sodium will hold water. So that creates that plateau sometimes. It's not the same as a body regulation level plateau, but it can still act as one. In other words, all of a sudden the weight's not coming off, and that's that panic about 10 o'clock at night when you got weigh-ins the next morning, and you look down and you're like, wait a second, this should have already came off. So what Mike has done in his second phase, which is the largest part of this document here, competition and training phase. So what I'm going to do in my training and what I'm going to do for competitions, and understand urine color. We talked about that. Reassess your water table. We talked about that. And then use accurate scales. There's nothing more frustrating than having a home scale that's off. And again, if the home scale is off and it's consistent every time, that's okay, because now you just deduct 2/10 or you add 2/10 or whatever you got to add. It's the one that acts like the bottom of the page there, it yo-yos up and down. That thing, you just got to throw it away, because that's going to create, that's that moment where we always talk about no map is better than a bad map. And if you're weighing on a scale and it's weighing you telling your coach that your scale at home weighed you this means nothing to him. Okay. So just again, it goes without saying, but an accurate scale is huge. And again, it falls in line with the very basics of training, right? Trust. We trust in our coaches. We trust in our procedures. We trust in our process. We trust in our own work. So to have an untrustworthy scale is just as dangerous as the rest of them, I think. So one that normally doesn't get touched on, I think. There in the middle, though, coach has lines going up and down, and rather than what you see over there on the left, that nice gradual pull down, you get into season, especially folk style season, where you're wrestling sometimes a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you know, um,
A lot of bumps.
in college, you're going Friday, Sunday, and that Friday, Sunday turnaround, you got to measure for that. And then you got to get right back into your training on Monday. So um, this is that moment where yo-yoing can happen. And any drawdown, these well, again, weight management, and part of weight management is the cut. And what Mike is signaling here is the cut. It's that downward push that you're pulling 3-4 pounds maybe to get back where you were 2 days earlier. And by doing that, you're adding an awful lot of stress to your body, both mentally, physically, and even spiritually. So now he's got the scales down there, and he's showing you those scales. And then you've got stress. Now, as that uptick goes, that line goes up, that's not about eating. That's not what that is. That's not, now I'm going to eat everything in sight. What that is that's recovery. And that means more rest. The more that you break your body down, the more you're susceptible to cold, flu, other illness. It breaks down our autoimmune system. And because it breaks down our immune system, we are more susceptible to those things. We're also, it's shown out in some research that we're more prone to actually even injury, right, Mike?
That's exactly right.
So I think that the recovery part, for whatever we do that might be damaging, we've got to do that much and more to meet the recovery piece of that. So if you're yo-yoing and it looks like I lose 4 pounds, I gain 5, I lose 5 pounds, I gain 6, I lose 6 pounds, that's the absolute worst of yo-yoing, because now you're what you're doing is, and we've shown this, our team doc several years ago took really strict measurements on us and really tried to measure parts of the systems that would show that we lost power and strength over a 2-month period of time.
Wow.
And you're in the weight room awfully hard in the off season, and then you're in the weight room to manage it during season, I hope. And to lose strength during season, that's an absolute no-no. I mean, you want to be at your very best by the time you get to district, regionals, and states. And this makes no sense to do this.
We were on a USA
Mike,
football call earlier today, and
yes.
they had a strength coach from one of the pro teams. I think it was Carolina, and he
Okay.
had said 80% of what comes out of the strength training sessions is confidence. And so if I love what you're saying is
Great point.
if we've been training and we have these strengths, and maybe I can bench 200, and then all of a sudden I start my descension, and with the stress recovery bouncing back and forth, now I'm only maxing 175. The mental toll that takes on me can be pretty devastating.
Right on the money, right? Mike, you want to hit on those bottom 3?
You bet. Trying to keep our weight close to the competition weight. If we're out there on the mat wrestling at 125, but every day when we're training, we're wrestling at 135, then we don't know what it's like to wrestle at 125. So we want to try to set a goal to be near or on what our competition weight is when we get to the competition part of practice. I think that was a strategy Lincoln McElravy had voiced that I heard from, and just so effective. He wants to wrestle in practice what he's wrestling in matches, so he knows what energy he's got. And then we want to maintain hydration throughout the training week. A lot of folks think that, boy, if I cut the water out Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, my weight's lower, but you got nothing to run the tank on. We had several wrestlers throughout my career. We've taken them into a wrestling environment, said, hey, drink a gallon a day, drink 2 gallons a day, whatever it takes, drink as much as you want. If you don't make weight at the end of the week, it's on me. They've lost more at practice. They had better energy at practice, and they always made weight. So maintain that weight, hydration through the week, and make sure the calories that we eat are quality calories, not the junk stuff that doesn't fuel us well.
And then finally that third phase there, you get that final scale there, and then the recovery now is a nicer line, right? And so it's a more, now you're doing true recovery, I hope. And you're looking towards off-season activities. You're going to recover off of that, and then hopefully now get ready for freestyle and Greco season. If this has been during freestyle and Greco season, then hopefully these weigh-ins in the middle have been a little bit more spread out. If nothing else, when you wrestle local tournaments, then go up, right?
There you go.
Go with that training weight that you were talking about. Just stay at the training weight and get it done. Coach Jackson again and again today spoke about just performance, and when you look at some of the greats that we have currently wrestling, defending world champions, Dake and Taylor. I mean, these guys, Dake won 4 titles at 4 different weights going up each year. David Taylor, I mean, the list is long on guys that did that. And, and again, some guys, they'll actually go down in weight as they age. Brandon Slay's one of those. Freshman came in, wrestled 180, I believe. Just talked about this week. And then Brandon turned around and went down his junior and senior year. And then when he got to college, he was at 167, and then they changed that weight class to 74. So he bumped up to that. But then he turns around, Olympics, wins the gold, and his kilo transfers out to about 167 again. So, I mean, it's crazy. But again, what did he do? One of those, we tend to get great in technique. Our tactics improve, and that's leveling up. And somewhere in that leveling up, I used to ask college seniors a lot of times. I'd be on the road and I'd see them out or right after a dual meet on the way out the door and say, man, you're wrestling great. You're on a 12-match win streak right now. What are you thinking? He goes, Coach, got my diet down. I mean, my nutrition is right now. I'm not cutting weight anymore. I'm fueling. I'm having proper nutrition and I'm fueling. I'm not cutting weight. I'm fueling the body. And so it's just one of those things. And as we, really dial in what's making our performance great, older wrestlers tend to do that. And so I think that's what allows some of that. So again, what we're talking about is the development side. So tonight, Mike, hit that postseason 1 and 2 down there.
You bet. Yeah. Consider wrestling off season at your natural weight. Takes a little bit of break from that constant bouncing back and forth, and then really focus on what's important in the off season, which is improving skills.